Alla ddim. Yn diwynod, oedd e'n gweithio cyn i chi gyd i ddod. Hest. Mae rhywun eisiau dweud, diffodd y peth a cynnig eto, chymod, na'r teip o athroniaeth sydd gyda ni. Dim byd yn digwydd. Wedi mynd yn sownd.
Eirlys is whizzing along through the slides as well.
Eirlys is whizzing through the slides.
One of the organisers on the train. She stayed with her brother, David Charles Davis, director of the Field Museum of Natural History. Their most successful events in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Utica in New York State were planned by the local Welsh American churches. The San Francisco programming indicates the format of these meetings: speeches, singing, then fellowship. As tourists, they saw museums, movies, shopped and tried local fare, including exotic Chinese food in Los Angeles. On the return journey, they visited iconic sites such as the Grand Canyon, a brand new national park, and then Niagara Falls, where Annie, clad in oilskins, nearly fell on the icy paths. The Utica events showed two different ways of delivering their message. Jeannie Hitchcock of the St. David's Women's Club copied the Biltmore format, inviting 10 women's clubs to attend, not just the Welsh American community. About 450 showed at the elegant Hotel Utica. Later came the typical celebrations and fellowship at the Central Methodist Church, hosted by the Cymreigyddion Society. Back in New York, they were reunited with Elined. She announced her engagement to an Austrian, Walter Maria Kochnik, who she had met while a relief worker in Romania. Then came a wedding, that of the acclaimed Welsh opera singer Lila McGann to composer T. Osborne Roberts, with Annie giving the bride away. That garnered a lot of international publicity. So why come to America? Why did the appeal target the women of America? American women were organized and knew how to play the political game after victorious campaigns for national women's suffrage and prohibition. Many American women had fought long for progressive causes, the result of proliferation of organizations. There were local, state, and then national associations, including the General Federation of Women's Clubs and the National League of Women Voters. The League of Nations was finally rejected by the Senate in March 1920, but the Women's Pro-League Council and other groups continued to pressure the senators. They knew the value of publicity, and a petition of the women of Wales, including war widows and grieving mothers, was so appealing. The big names for us today, of course, are Eleanor Roosevelt and Carrie Chapman Catt. Annie had met both of them. ER was not yet a household name, but was becoming active in her own causes after her husband's political career was seemingly cut short by polio. Carrie Chapman Catt had engineered the suffrage victory by encouraging women to support the war effort. However, Catt was always at heart a pacifist and had returned to her peace activism. Ruth Morgan was the director of the League of Women Voters International Department. She had served at the Western Front as an American Red Cross commissioner and was devoted to educating the electorate about international issues. The leading contact for the Welsh women was Harriet Burton Laidlaw. She and her banker husband were devoted to international peace. She was above all an organizer who could set up an event from a simple at-home gathering for 150 people to the Biltmore lunch in just a couple of days. Her papers show meticulous attention to detail. Her friend Florence Tuttle said, to Harriet, "Nobody can inspire people politically as you can. Nobody can make as good a campaign speech." These leaders were wealthy, well-educated. They had the time, dedication, and resources to devote to their causes. Mary Ellis had acquired a list of contacts, American contacts, with a transatlantic network of women based on Geneva, the headquarters of the League of Nations. She is prominent in the Washington, D.C. story and a key part of that network. Florence Tuttle, others included Florence, were unofficial observers for their organizations. She represented the Women's Pro League Association. So why is this story mostly forgotten on both sides of the Atlantic? The American side became increasingly hostile to international causes. Those who supported them, even women's clubs, were increasingly regarded as unpatriotic, un-American, as part of a spider web of deceits with a center in Moscow. And yet the only hint of opposition experienced by Annie came when leaving New York. She wrote almost offhandedly that she was given an anonymous letter telling her to get out of the States. Still, there was progress. Carrie, Kat, and Ruth Morgan organized the National Committee on the Cause and Cure of War, which first met in January 1925. Its purpose was to educate women about international events as a federation of women's clubs. Kat gave our Welsh women credit for its creation. Thus have the women of the two countries given one another fresh courage and inspiration to the labours for the welfare of mankind. It did not survive the Great Depression and the coming of the Second World War. This women's crusade for peace resonated on both sides of the Atlantic. It gave an extra boost to the movements for disarmament, for membership to the World Court, and for the Kellogg-Briand Treaty of 1928. The international friendships created by the crusade lasted. The Laidlaws, Tuttles, Kochnicks, Annie, Mary, William Davis, and so many others continued working for peace and for the creation later of the United Nations and especially UNESCO. On her return, Annie said, "We have aroused the interest of American women, and I hope the message we bring back will stir Welsh women to continue with still greater zeal their League of Nations work." Today, we honour the contributions of Annie, Mary and Luned to international peace. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr iawn I ti, Eirlys. Mae Eirlys digwydd bod yn gwrando ar-lein yn fyw, ond ni wedi recordio hi rhag ofn.